What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, host of Epic Conversations, and it's the home of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I host the only online conversation in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And being part of that collaboration last year, our team reached out to over 100,000 fathers around the world directly and indirectly. So as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Well, on the Dr. Vibe show, whatever platforms I'm hosting, I always get excited to have new friends with us. So we have another new friend with us tonight, and we'll give you a little background on Dr. Joel Bratton Jr. He is a native of Baltimore, the B More city, and my major mentor is a B More resident. But Dr. Joel is the CEO and founder of Project Hope, educational consultants, and a fierce champion for underserved and vulnerable populations. His research focuses on Black male achievement and Black community and engagement in the P20 and underserved Black male success in community college and the success of Black male mentoring programs at community colleges and universities. In addition to his research, he has authored and contributed to several books and published peer-reviewed articles. While teaching at the collegiate level, he has served as an educational reviewer for the Education and Urban Society to evaluate peer review articles for publication. His highly anticipated memoir, Where I Start Is Not Where I Finish, or Will Finish, is an engaging exploration of his life's journeys and moments that define us. He has worked in public education. He has worked in public education. That was a lot tongue twister there. He has worked in public education for over 25 years with the Baltimore City school system in several capacities. In addition, he has participated in several Black male initiatives, including Be More's My Brother's Keeper initiative and programs focusing on fatherhood. He received a Bachelor of Science in Business Management from West Virginia State College, now University, and a Master of Science in Human Service Administration with a concentration in Children and Family Counseling from Coppin State. He earned his doctoral degree in Community College Leadership from Morgan State University. He enjoys serving his community with his organization, Project Hope Educational Consultants, and his fraternity, Omega Phi. Let me get this right there. My tongue's too much. Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Inc. Get that right. I don't want the frat people on my back. He's involved in several boards, Black Girls Dive and National Philharmonic Orchestra, and a participant in the Board Pipeline Leadership Development Training Program. When he has spare time, because there's a lot going on here, he enjoys family time, reading, riding his bicycle, attending sporting events, and cooking and the outdoors. Dr. Bratton will be joining us tonight. We're going to have a great conversation about Black K-12 students during and post-pandemic. So after a nice long introduction, let's introduce for the first time, but not the last time, Dr. Joel Bratton Jr. How are you doing?
I'm doing, and sorry for the technical difficulties.
It's all right. Hey, it's in the past. It's in the past. It's all good. It's all good. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Had a busy day, but hey, I'm here. I woke up this morning and just enjoying this evening.
Good. And well, are your days usually this crazy?
Well, it's been crazy. I transitioned from K-12 into higher ed, so I'm at Bowie State University. So this is students about to graduate and start. We're getting ready for summer courses and fall. So it's been kind of busy. Today we had a lot of professional developments for our students. Northland Gruntman came on campus today and want to, speak to a lot of our students, particularly our juniors and seniors. So I was tied up in that this most of the afternoon. And then, of course, trying to catch up on some things too. And my editor today for my book. So it's been kind of a busy day and a busy week. And Excellent. It's just Thursday. So
excellent. Well, I don't know what's going on, but there is a whole pile of people watching this live. So it sounds like you have a fan club. So, so this is a good thing. And I think especially one of my passions is Black male achievement and Black men in general. So anyone who's watching live, please chime in with comments and questions. We'll be able to get the doctor to answer and speak to them to the best of his ability. Dr. Bratton, like I usually do when new friends come on for the first time, can you share a little bit about your background? Because that's a great resume I read that I got through without tying my tongue in a knot a few times. Can you share a bit of background about yourself?
Right. Yes, well, and you stated I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, Charm City. Lived here all my life, except going to college for 4 years, 5 years, which was in West Virginia. I consider myself a pillar of the community. I'm very engaged in social justice issues, politics, Black male involvement, fatherhood programs, you name it. I attend church. Definitely have to have a spiritual background. Um, and just enjoying the outdoors, four hobbies. One was cooking. I'm not a chef, but I like to cook. Just experiment. I purchased a bicycle. A lot of my friends were riding bicycles, different bike groups. So I had an opportunity to go purchase a bike, and I participate in that. I ride often. Then I decided to play golf. So some of my friends, they are avid golfers, and so I said, let me get out here and try my hands at golf. The last time I played golf was when I was in college, and I said, let me take a golfing class. And so I don't think I really learned all the fundamentals at that particular time. However, fast forward, I decided to get me a golf coach, and so I think I'm pretty good. I'm not Tiger Woods yet, but I think I might can get there in a couple of years. And then I also wanted to play the stock market. So
Okay.
So I got an opportunity to do some investing. And, one of the things, for the folks who are listening, if you want to invest, I'm not like a big investor, but one of the things President Biden always talk about is electric vehicles, So in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm going to give you a stock tip. If you have a couple of coins, laying around, invest in electric vehicles. Not so much the car itself, but just the components. Because I think within the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to transition from gas to electric vehicles.
Good suggestion. I think also too, if anyone has mechanical experience, get yourself trained on repairing electric vehicles.
Exactly. Yes.
That is that is going to become a growing in demand marketplace.
Yeah.
What was life growing up in Bmore as a young Joel?
Well, I wouldn't say I really had a great life. I come from initially a 2-parent family household, but then, my mom and dad, things transpired. And so I can say most of my life I was raised in a single parent household. And I really wanted to say that my mom did a wonderful job raising my sister and I, who is 4 years younger than me. And, one of the things that, she instilled in us, we both, my sister and I, she always made sure that we was exposed to some of the best things, whether it's, traveling, whether it was, participating in athletics. My sister was a great basketball player here in Baltimore. I ran track, did really well there, but I also participated in, Pee Wee football, basketball, baseball, so we, she made sure that we was probably tired enough not to get out here and do some mischievous things. So, we was very exposed to a lot of different things, athletic stuff. We travel, whether it's going to New York or just different places. A lot of times our kids don't get an opportunity to get outside of their environment. So I was lucky to say that I did have that experience. Also, I felt like I had a great family nucleus. Whether it's my family members on my dad's side or my mom's side. For some reason, we that part of our family stayed together. Regardless of the situation with my mom and dad, but my sister and I were still able to connect with relatives from both sides, even to this day. So, sometimes just because the parents divorce, that doesn't mean the families have to divorce.
That is not, I hear that not as much as I'd like to, especially back in those times where, and even more so these times where the parents divorced, but the family was still tight.
Yeah, yeah. To this day, I have a cousin. He does a fish fry. Um, so and that's on my dad's side, but we're still, him and I was close, even, during the time that my mom, and dad separated. And to this day, we still close. We don't see each other as much, but we still stay connected. He was a track runner. I ran track in high school. So I kind of say that, yeah, hey, he instilled those traits in me in terms of running track. And so I was very good at it. So I would hang out with his friends who ran track. And I just, I took a liking to it. I could have strayed away and did some things, sold drugs, used drugs or whatever, but for whatever reason, that wasn't what I was, I wanted to do, you know.
You mentioned what your mother instilled in you. First of all, is your dad still alive?
He's still alive, yes.
What has he instilled in Joel?
Well, we don't have a close relationship, and so I think if anything, the male figures in my family from both sides, they picked up that slack. And athletics, I play sports, coaches, just my friends that I hung out with, so we had that bond. So again, those people who I hung out with, whatever they was doing in their life that might not have been, the best thing they should have been doing, they didn't put that on me. So I could still hang out with people who either got high or sold drugs, right? I
Hmm.
still could fit in, but not, I didn't have to indulge in that, those things.
Reading your bio, I can see that education was very foundational. Is that from your mother?
Yes, I think definitely for my mother. At the end of the day, um, again, being an athlete, I wanted to be an athlete. I also wanted to go to college. So I felt like you had to do well in school in order to, if you want to get a scholarship, or even if you want to go to college. So yes, she instilled education, amongst my daughter. I mean, amongst my sister and I, and we instill that into our children.
Excellent.
Our children are in school. They're doing well. I got a niece that's about to graduate in another month. My daughter is coming out um, um, next year, and then I have two nephews who are doing very well. One is a basketball player. One is a baseball player. So, we try to keep things on point. Um, and I have a son as well.
Congratulations on that. Let's transition. Where did your passion begin in regards to Black students and education? Where did that start?
Ooh, it started probably in back in the 90s. I worked at a middle school called Cowerton Middle School. And so if people listening and they know the demographics of Baltimore, east, west. And so I was on the west side of Baltimore. And Cowerton Middle School was probably one of the rough middle schools in the west side of Baltimore. So I worked there. A friend of mine, a guy named Dr. Marco Clark, a really good friend of
I
mine.
know that name.
Yeah, Richard Wright Charter School. Yeah,
Yes,
and
I know
so,
Mark Oka. I know that name.
and
Absolutely.
so him and I worked at the same school. Actually,
Okay.
I was hanging out. I was working for the phone company, and I was like, "Look, man, give me a job at your school." At the school he worked at. So he got me a job, and so I saw the things that was in my community. The young people who were probably like me in some cases came from a single parent. Um, some of their family members were, drug addicted, incarcerated, just that whole gamut of social ills, right? So I saw that in the students that I was interacting with. And so I said I had to do something about that or try to do that. So I started a all male 5-week spiritual based program called Project Hope. It was a summer camp. And as I stated earlier, my mom, exposed my sister and I to some of the great things in life, and we ate some of the great food, that's out there. So one of the things I wanted to do, and my philosophy was that students don't have, or kids don't have to be a product of their environment. And so in this case, I had 40 African American men that I had an all male summer camp. And so we did, our curriculum was African American studies. And at that particular time, it was computer literacy. So that's when everybody was talking about computers. So in African American studies, it's kind of troubling that a lot of older folks don't even know about many of our African American heroes. They know about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, but they don't know about a lot of folks who really paved, the life for us to have. You know, even as far as Thurgood Marshall, Shirley Chisholm. A lot of people didn't know that. So one of the things I wanted to do is expose young people to their history. We did that for 5 weeks. We learned about computer literacy for 5 weeks, and then I took them to a different church in the mosque each week. I wasn't advocating religion, but I grew up in the church. My mom made sure my sister and I went to church. I was an altar boy in church. I was confirmed. I went to Episcopalian church. So again, even to this day, when I'm experiencing some hardship or just just got things heavy on my mind, my mother would always say, "Just put it in God's hand," right? So in my mind, I want these young people to say, "Hey, I took them to these different places." Um, one great highlight, I took these young men to a restaurant in Georgetown called Houston's Restaurant, right? They started in Chicago. So one of my good friends was the general manager. So I took 40 African American boys. This was a 5-star restaurant, 40. And we ate, we went there and ate. You might know another good brother, David Miller. Him and I,
Oh yeah. I
yeah.
about 4 years ago, I was David Miller was up here, and him and I sat on a panel together. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
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 we
so he
we're walking in the same circles, my
yeah.
brother.
Yeah, so we worked. So he worked with me, and we did this 5-week camp, and it was awesome. And so to this day, actually even doing that, I was recruited by the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. That was like my first major directorship job. I ran all the youth programs for the Housing Authority of Baltimore City. I mean, at that age, at that time, I had my own take-home car. Like I was like, wow. So I felt like I was just doing it. And then from that point on, I had other nonprofits to come out and try to recruit me because one of the things I did, those values that my mom took that to a citywide program. So anything that you know I had my staff to do, or it was always Black centered. Even for my caterer. You know, we would do lunchbox. Any programs that we would have during the summer, I would have a Black caterer. Any activities that we would have, I would solicit African American people. Further that research says when people look like us, they tend to be more progressive. They because they can relate to the folks that looks like them.
Wow. Well, there's questions coming in already, and
Hmm.
people are watching, and we appreciate it. And we are going to get to the questions. I'm going to fit them in as we go along this journey. Uh, actually, so that was your start. How long have you been actively engaged with helping and serving Black men?
I want to say at least for the last 20 years. Yeah, for the
Wow.
last 20 years. And to this day, again, I mean, I'm also a Mason, Prince Hall Mason, and in a fraternity. And so, you know, at the end of the day, we see the things that are happening in our community. Um, our criminal justice system is basically majority African American men,
Mhm.
and I don't agree with the pipeline or one of my good friends, Ari Tosin, would say,
I
let's
know
do
that name too.
let's debunk the statistics. You know, some people say, well, we'll know if a student or a child or a particular male, if he's in third grade, and if he's in special education, we know he's going to go to jail. I don't believe that. You know, I'm not going to say I wasn't in special ed, but at third grade, you know, I felt like I was a success. I didn't go to jail. So, you know, I think that good parenting skills is probably 90% of success for not just males, but young ladies as well. If you have good parenting skills, um, and you really are there for your children and try to mold them in a way that they're going to be productive citizens. And again, you know, everybody's not going to be successful, but I think parenting plays a very important part in this process.
Okay. Since we just recently talked about education, I'm going to put up two questions in regards to education yourself. Angela's asking, how has education played a role in your life? And how do you utilize that perspective to mentor and encourage your students, particularly Black males, with all the barriers or potential obstacles they have or have faced?
Well, I put myself in any and everything that I do. I put myself in their place as a Black male. So at the end of the day, um, the things that we see how in the society, um, I put myself there because I could have been one of those folks. I could have been a Freddie Gray. You know, I could have been someone um, to this day robbing people, carjacking folks, selling drugs. Right. I think the things that I've done, hopefully, you know, whether it's getting my education, um, being a vested interest in my community, I will hope that when young men see that, that would allow them to say that, hey, if Dr. Bratton could do that, I can do it. They definitely have to have some role models. They have to have some mentors. They have to have someone that they can lean on to help them, you know, move through this process of success.
Okay. Uh, okay. So, question: Are we? Is our generation, are the elders, are the older blacks who are older than the youth, are we doing a good enough job for our younger people, in our opinion, in your opinion?
No, I think we dropped the ball. I think we dropped the ball, and I say that because you know the generation that we see right now are coming up with are growing up with their children. So the generation prior to that did not instill some of those core values. So I don't want my daughter to be my buddy. I want to be able to show her that I'm your dad, and I want to provide some constructive criticism so that you can be successful, right? I'm not going to go to the clubs with you. I'm not going to go hang out and smoke weed with you and drink and like you have to pull yourself away from that. You can be firm, but you can be fair. But I think that our generation um, has dropped the ball. I think you know with the mass incarceration um, and also with the divide of the family. And so when our young people see that, sometimes they will say, you know, how can I be successful? I remember speaking to a student in a you know in school one day, and he was showing off. And I remember when I was in school, if the teacher says say to me, "I'm going to call your mother, I'm going to call your father, I'm going to call somebody," I got kind of scared, right? I had a student, this young man, say to me, he said, "I said, man, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call your father." He said, "Well, let me know when you find him."
Oh, wow.
So, so when students or when men or women see that there has been a level of abandonment in their life, when they have to fend for themselves, then sometimes as adults we can't ask them to do certain things because they have been removed from this whole process. They disengage and they don't feel like that we can tell them anything.
Okay. Good stuff. Now the question here, someone from Bmore saying, Dr. Joel, what do you feel is needed in Baltimore City to help reduce high crime, poverty, and drug affliction?
Oh my goodness. You know, again, I think we have to create some wraparound services for our families. Our families are struggling. They are struggling. They have a program, a group of young men. Actually, one of my mentors, Dr. Andre Bunley, they have a program, We Are Us, and these are about a group of men who have been either incarcerated, they are pastors, rabbis, and they're coming together to try to kind of do a holistic approach and reach young men in the community. And we have to provide wraparound services for these young people. We have to educate them. I think the school right now, the public school system is really doing a disservice. I think we need to start from scratch. Basically, start working with our preschoolers, um, kindergartners. We have to start from the beginning because I think in some cases we have lost a generation.
So let me ask then. Yes, I agree with you. We got to start at kindergarten, but what about the home?
Yeah.
Because that's the spear that everything starts. Before that, you know, what do you
So I
want
mean,
or what do you
yeah.
vision for to happen with the home?
Well, I think again we got to repair the home. I mean, we got to come in and we got to look at wraparound services, and I'm with that. So we can't just fix the child. We got we got to find out what are some of those baseline issues that are happening in the household. Whether it's the gas and electric, whether it's rent, whatever it is, we got to be able to fix the household. I believe if we fix that household, those children won't go out and be mischievous. Right now we in most urban cities we are having a issue with juveniles, and the reason why we having issues with juveniles because there's no one home. There's no one there to guide them to do the right thing, and in many cases they're taking care of the household. 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds selling drugs, they taking care of their mom and dad, and for whatever reason their mom and dad may be on some type of substance abuse.
Hmm, true.
So around service, whether it's drug treatment, um, just the basic essentials, so folks can be able to feel like they want it.
Okay. That's what, and everyone who's watching live, please keep the comments and questions coming. We haven't got to our main the scheduled subject. We're just getting to it now, but that's no problem because hey, we want Dr. Joel back because you're showing that you want him back and asking great questions. Let me get it while I can before other people bring up questions. Uh, we originally were supposed to chat about Black K to 12 students during and post pandemic. So let's have you share about Black K to 12 students during the pandemic first.
Well, during the pandemic, black kids were struggling. They were struggling, and so this is a twofold question. Prior to the pandemic, we was already underachieving. We was already underachieving, and we was going supposedly been going to school, right? Now that the schools were closed per se, face to face, for almost 2 years, and you had students who had challenges maneuvering the social media. Our students, we say they're very tech savvy, but you know, from an equitable standpoint, we had problems with tablets. We had Wi-Fi. Folks didn't have Wi-Fi in the house, and so these students were now they coming in with a deficit. Now they're going to be even more of a deficit because they're not able to uh, get the information they need to continue to learn. Not only that, when you talk about families, our moms and dad was facing challenges. The grandparents were facing challenges because you had in some cases you had grandparents, 80-year-old grandparents, trying to educate their grandkids. You had students who were disengaged. They were not, they turned the tablets off, didn't do work. I mean, I popped in on some of the virtual learning, and these are the things that I saw. I saw parents cussing at their children. I saw women walking around naked. I saw people smoking marijuana. And I remember going to a cabinet meeting and just telling like my superiors and the superintendent that we got to figure out a way to have some type of virtual etiquette. And so when you see these things going on in a virtual setting, just imagine when you bring in your kid to school. I've seen parents cuss kids out going to school. So, we have to, as we stated earlier, we have to fix the family. We have to fix the family, whether it's parenting skills, the wraparound services, substance abuse. We need to make sure we do that. I understand, we got students that smoking like smoking a lot of marijuana now, in the schools. So they have a lot of imbalance in their household and with them as well.
So that's what you were seeing during the pandemic. What are you seeing post-pandemic? Because my thought process is the pandemic has set many Blacks back at least a generation.
Yeah. So what we're seeing now, this is what we're seeing now. Students are disengaged. They're not going to school. They're committing crimes. Parents don't know what's going on with their children in the school setting. We've had situations where students are being passed and have not gone to school.
You're kidding.
No, not at all. Kids are being passed and not going to school.
Why do you think that's happening?
Well, because again, principals are under a lot of pressure, and we have something called fair student funding. So if a school doesn't keep up their attendance, that means the money that they got on the front end, they got to pay it back on the back end.
Right.
So a lot of times there are issues where in that case, sometimes the principals could lose their job, or two things that has baffled me. In my lifetime, I would have never thought that we would be closing schools and churches. And I've seen a lot of churches being, either auctioned off or closed up. And we're definitely losing schools because we don't have the population of students anymore. Or students are not going to school. So again, we got to figure out something that's going to help them to engage them. And right now, we're losing them to the streets.
Where has, in your opinion, the education system fell short?
I think, it fell short. I want to say in the mid 80s. I think when the crack epidemic came about, and then President Clinton did the welfare to work. I thought that was going to work at some point, but the 80s and 90s, we saw a major shift. And now in the 21st century is just unbelievable way the education system is going. So, I think that we did not, when I went to school, I had a home economics class. I had I took we call SPAR class. I had music, art, gym. I had industrial arts. So in middle school, I learned how to build a soapbox derby. The little cars. You ever see Evel Knievel? They had a little, yeah. And so
soapbox derby.
Soapbox derby, exactly. And so now, when you have vocational schools, students are not engaged in those activities. And one is because they do poorly in math, in reading, or English. So the 80s and 90s was starting of the downfall of the education system. And I think as time went on, um, as we started scaling back on programs, students became less interest. And now with the advocates that are fighting for more activities in schools, it's kind of too late to a certain extent. So if you really want to see that change, you gotta work on those, uh, uh, kindergartners, third graders, so that we can kind of mold them into being productive citizens.
Not a happy picture you're sharing with us. How has the challenge become more difficult? You've been you've been a crusader for a number of years. You've seen the good, the bad, and the not so good.
Right.
How has it changed?
Well, I think, a lot of times people think if I keep throwing money into stuff, that's going to solve the problem. And in many cases, if we manage that money, then we're going to be back to square one again. I think, you know, we have to really take a holistic approach. And if we're going to try to educate the kids, we got to also do something with the families. Because if the families are not operating right, then the kids are not going to operate right. You think about it. If I can't understand why businesses want to not uh, make the minimum wage, equitable. It's hard to raise a family of 4 to 5 kids making $10 an hour, and you got people that's protesting not to increase the minimum wage. I don't get it. So if you don't do those things, then you're going to have the crime. You're going to have kids not going to school. So if you don't build the house, if you don't build a family, then you're going to be right where you are.
Hmm. When I look at being here in Canada, when I look in the education system in the United States, it's not cheap to go to school.
Right,
It's not cheap, man.
right,
And how many not only black individuals but individuals in period who may be in their 30s and 40s, this college debt.
right, right. It's a trickle down effect. I mean, and college. I had a student, and this is real. Just recently, I think I was going across campus, and I ran into this student. He asked me a question, and um, I think no, I had my fraternity shirt on. He was talking to me about my fraternity, right? And then I asked him like, what do you do, right? So he was a business major, but he was like, he was in the process of dropping out of school because he was a photographer. That was his trade, right? That was his side gig, right? And he was like, my friends, they live in Atlanta. They making money. They taking pictures. They doing everything, right? And so I said, okay. And I remember speaking to and I'm gonna get to that. I remember talking to a hairstylist, and she told me, she said, I'm ready to give this up because I'm tired of hustling. And so, and what she meant, like some days she have a good week, some days she don't have a good week, but she still had to play that bottom line. So what I said to this young man, I said, well, you getting an education and you're a business major, and I was saying to him, so yes, it's good to be an entrepreneur, but you also got to learn how to, you know, count your money. You got to be able to pay your taxes. You got to be able to do, whatever you need to do. You can learn that, and you may also, get folks to do that for you. However, you never want to be in a situation where you have your business and either one, you own the IRS money, or someone's taking your money because you are not being a part of your business, if that makes sense, right? And so, and he understood where I was coming from. I said, you can still be a photographer, but you want to still learn the business aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, at the end of the day, you might not want to take pictures. You might want to have a group of people under your organization taking pictures at weddings, at photo shoots, different places. So you don't just want to be that one person hustling out there every single day. And so, he said, hey, he said, I didn't see it that way. I said, yeah, I think a lot of our young people, our millennials in particular, they want the fast money, they want to make the money, and that's it. But they don't want to really. I don't think they really don't want to work for it. I think my generation, we work for the things that we have. This generation, because of the social media, makes it so easy for them to do things. They don't want to research anything. They want to go to Google and just pull up everything.
Mm.
So in a way, society has created this monster.
Wow. Wow. Uh, can you give us a recent success that you've had mentoring somebody?
Yes. I- yeah. I had a student. I remember he was actually he's still working in the school system. He was working at Calvin Middle School, and I remember this kid would get in trouble all the time, right? Whether it was, he would get incarcerated. At that time, they had the probation officers that would be in the schools. Um, Came from a broken family and all that, right? And I saw this kid. We have something called paraprofessionals, right? And I just happened to see him at a professional development, and he was like, "Hey, Mr. Bratton, how you doing?" I said, "What's going on?" He said, and he got a job working with the school system, meaning he's getting good benefits, right? And he said to me, he said, "Man, I remember when a teacher told him that he wasn't going to amount to nothing, that he was going to be locked up. He was from Emerson Avenue. I remember this to this day." And and this was a kid who, we're not supposed to put our hands on, but this was a kid I would jack up every now and then, not physically, but I jack him up, and put my hands on him a little bit, just and and not saying that I want to be physical with you, but sometimes these kids need that tough love. But this kid, he went to the community college, he got a certification, and I think the last time I spoke to him, and he had a family, and he was going to go to college.
Amazing. Amazing. What's the toughest thing that you have to deal with in the heart work that you do?
Well, the toughest thing is, and just like on the streets late at night.
So you're
I mean,
you're so you're out on the streets late at night?
yeah. I mean, if I'm hanging out with my friends, and this is real. I work at an alternative school, and these are students that are very transient. So they might be incarcerated. They might be, they just back and forth, right? And this is some real stuff. So I'm out in the city of Baltimore. I think me and my friends we hanging out. There's an area in Baltimore where there is what they call the red light district, right? I remember I saw a student, right, out there proposition herself for money. And I said I couldn't believe it. And it was so shocking that this person didn't have like regular, regular, clothes. I mean, no, she had like a baby suit on. Like she had like literally a baby suit and some Uggs boots.
How old was this person?
She probably was about 18, 19 years of age.
Wow.
So that Monday I go back to school. So our schools have school police, right? I said something to the school police. They said, yeah, we know. So young people there, we got something called the squeegee kids. These kids, we got kids out there selling water.
Yeah.
First it was kids. Well, first it was kids. Now is adults. So when you see these kids out there, making their hustle, and they're there 8 hours, 10 hours a day, some of them are supposed to be in school.
Where are their parents, Dr. Joel?
Their parents are either, either incarcerated, or either their parents are, selling drugs or on drugs. And a lot of our kids are homeless.
Homeless.
Yeah.
At that age.
At that age, yes.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
So I mean, so it's real. Excuse me, it's real. And so when you see these kids doing the crimes that they do, if you really talk to them, it's not because they want to do it; they have to do it.
But when they do it, do they know the consequences?
I think they do. I think they do, because a lot of these kids, crime is generational. So if you think about it, you got, if your son is on his way to jail, you got the father and uncles that's already in jail.
That's all they know. That's all they know.
That's all they know. That's all they know. So they out here trying to, make ends meet, but at the end of the day, it's like they don't have that role model. Their role model is a person that's in jail. Their role model is a kid that's on the street selling drugs, the drug deal.
Wow. Jocelyn is saying, incarcerated, suffering with substance abuse and mental illness, unemployed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are many of these individuals becoming part of a lost generation?
Yes, we are. We have a lost generation. We have a lost generation. Can we fix it? I don't know. Maybe over time, but we are definitely, we have a lost generation. When you have folks that's, particularly young men, that are committing the crimes that they're committing. And in some cases, we had a situation where there was a group of folks, and they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and they committed a crime and killed somebody in a very affluent area in Baltimore. The guy was going to the ATM machine. So it's people. I think the pandemic really opened the doors to reality that we have some serious social justice issues. We have a lot of social ills with our young people or families in this country.
If you feel that there is a lost generation, what impact is that having on the generations ahead of it and the generations behind it?
Well, hopefully the generation behind it, as I stated, is that we can get to them sooner than later. The generation that's moving, that's past us now, some of those folks who have been, let's say, experiencing some hardship, hopefully they have been rehabilitated, whereas that they can reach out to their nephews and other family members, and basically instill in them that crime is not the way to go. Crime is not the way to go. And not to say everybody has to go to college, but you got to figure out your niche. You got to figure out, whether I'm going to go back and get my GED and get into some type of trade program, or I'm going to maybe have my high school diploma and go to some type of trade program or some type of something to get you back to where you need to be.
What role does government have on the current situation, and what role would you like them to have to
You know,
make a U-turn with this,
I
help make a
think
U-turn with this situation?
I think the government plays a big and let's think about this. When you go back during the prohibition days, right? You got the Rockefellers, they made money off for uh, real estate. The Kennedys made their money off of alcohol, right? And then you have this guy Donald Trump who filed bankruptcy like 5 or 6 times, right?
Hmm.
Right, and still quote unquote is a billionaire or a millionaire, right? So when the people that look like us, when we start doing those things, they change the rules of engagement. So it's hard to really file bankruptcy now. And then with alcohol, what they do, they put taxes on it, right? Now we got something called medical marijuana that's about to come out, right? So if you prior to that, everybody's smoking marijuana now, everybody. And so the government plays a part because they're about economics and they're not trying to fix the problems that are in these cities, particular urban cities. And their whole bandage approach is incarceration. And so on one hand, because they're about business of making money. I mean, they're gonna throw money out, so they want some of the rate of their return. And so part of their rate of return is put these folks who don't know how to conform. We're gonna lock them up. And so we have to realize and understand that there's a bigger picture than what's being played. And if we don't get it together, we're gonna be a society of they try to wipe out all black men, in particular, and take away families.
Yeah, when the father is, well, in many black families with no father present, look in what's happened into
That's what,
many of those
yeah,
families.
yeah, yeah,
Look what's happening to the families of the people we're chatting about, the young black male,
yeah, yeah,
gone.
gone. And you know, it's we I mean, we can preach every day. We can walk. We can march. Um, but if it doesn't really impact the generation that needs to be impacted, we're back to where we are.
Well, it's interesting. I was reading an article in the last day or so about, I think every year the National Urban League does their State of Black America,
Right,
and this year's is not pretty.
right, right,
It's not pretty.
right.
In their through their lens, Black America is not in a good state at all
Exactly.
overall.
Right.
Was the Look at the young people you're helping now compared to when you were their age. Who had more hope as a young person? The Black K to 12 students of today, or the Black K students when Joel was a K to 12 student?
I think when I was a K-12 student, they talk about raising a village. So we have folks who and it's real. Like if you didn't do right, if I didn't do right in school, they're gonna say something to my mother. If I didn't do right, we had this guy named Mr. Robinson who was like a behavior interventionist at my school. Like you had to go to him. So you had people that was constantly in your ear, you know,
Mhm.
and what's happening. That generation that I came under, they're dying off, right?
Yeah.
And then this generation is, as I stated earlier, they're growing up with their children because they
What caused the disconnect? What caused the turn?
Well, I think again, I think it's definitely the crack epidemic. I mean, I really think that had a lot to do with it. I mean, you know, I went to West. I was in West Virginia. I went to a HBCU in West Virginia. However, during the '80s, you would have thought that in West Virginia that the crack would have really did some damage to African Americans. But guess what? It was more white people buying crack, but they didn't show that. It was more white people I saw in West Virginia buying crack. And I mean, not just regular people, there were people that owned businesses that were strung out on crack. So I think that really did a lot to, where this country is. And
Just to interject, how much did the crime bill of a number of years ago have an impact on the K to 12 students of today? Black K to 12 students, or if any?
well, I think the crime bill, had a lot to do with it because again, that's when we talk about the mass incarceration, but we also looked at zero tolerance, right? So when you look at, and that was, during the '80s and partly the '90s, you had mayors in some of these major cities like New York, Baltimore was one, and these were Democratic mayors that were locking up black and brown boys. And some of those folks were being locked up for, some of them were locked up for crimes they didn't even do. When you have people coming out now 25 and 30 years, that was back in the '80s and '90s. So, so when you look at it now, you know, they still want to get back to that because they still want to get back to that uh, zero tolerance of crime. I mean, of incarceration. But it's a lot of pushback because now we want to defund the police. But you also had crooked police 25, 30 years. That's why those people that's coming out 25 years later, right? You know, 25 years later, we got kids that's dying just because, you know, they what they got a cigarette in their hand, you know.
Wow. Hmm. Wow. Wow. Well, we're going to start winding it down because there's definitely going to be a part two of this. Um, Dr. Joel, you haven't painted a good picture here, but it's a real picture.
Right.
What? So, what I'm going to ask you is a one question, but different to different. Address it from different lens of groups.
Right.
So, in order to help, what is your message when it comes to Black K to 12 students during and post pandemic? What is your message for the education system?
Well, my message for the education system is, we got fix it and make it more equitable to all students, all students,
Okay.
um, because the, the things that are happening now is because the system wasn't built for us.
So let's stop right there. The system wasn't built for us. Should we not try to just be sustainable ourselves as much as possible?
As much as possible, but I think now we have what's happening now is that we're trying to fix something that we never fixed before. And now everything is going to be a band-aid approach. And if you don't fix the core, it's like, building a bridge. You got the infrastructure. You got to build, you got to take care of the families. You got to build the families again. You got to build them and make them feel like there's some hope.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got to make sure that, you got to put them in a position, not giving them a stimulus check, but giving them like real hope that they can be sustainable citizens in this country.
What is your message to non melanated Americans when it comes to Black K-12 students during post and pandemic?
Well, I think that, just like they advocate for education and gay rights and everything else, be a champion for everybody, not just one segment of the population.
Okay. What is your message to Black women on this subject?
Wow, that's that's a tough one. I think that, I was raised by a Black woman. I think generations of Black women have changed because of what transpired with the Black man. So I think that some of those women have sons, right? So at the end of the day, I think that you got to encourage your let go the past and let's move forward, because if you stay connected to the past, your children is going to see the dysfunction that you have for that black. It could be any Black man, and you don't want your son to be labeled by a Black woman, or to say that you're like your father, you're like your uncle. You want to have that Black man to have his own identity, but you need that Black woman, not to say she got to forget her past, but you got to instill in your son that you don't have to be like the past.
Make your future bigger than your past.
Exactly.
What is your message to the young Black man?
There's hope. There's hope. Definitely. There's hope.
And finally, what is your message to Black men?
That we got to support our families, no matter what trials and tribulations you went through in the past. If you know, if you want to make a difference, not just for yourself, but you got to make a difference with your family. You gotta come back to that space
Good stuff. Dr.
and take
Joel,
care of your family, particularly your Black boys.
it's no problem. I also take care of the Black family. Yeah. Boys and family. Take care. And even if they're not your blood relatives, take care of the families.
Yeah,
Because many of us know there are many Black caregivers, male and female, out there that are doing incredible jobs.
right. Right.
Be our brother's keeper, be our sister's keeper.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Dr. Joel, time has gone by fast. Got to have you back if you have time in your schedule.
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely a pleasure. If you want to get in contact with Dr. Joel Bratton Jr., there's his email address, joelbratton@gmail.com, or you can call him 443-813-6808. Dr. Bratton, I'd like to wish you, your family, everyone that works with you, to first of all, congratulations on the great work you have done, you are doing, and you will be doing.
Right.
Also want to wish everyone to give themselves grace. And then finally, to remember to just don't manage your time, manage your energy.
Yes.
Look forward to having you back again. Whenever you're ready, we'll take you back, because enough people know about you and they stayed on watching what you had to say. So the interest is there, and keep on being a drum warrior.
Thank you.
Blessings. Thank you very much. Take care. Well, everybody, epic conversation. Dr. Joel Bratton, he brought it, and he was real. He wasn't playing. He was not playing, and he brought it. And I'll just put up his contact information again on the screen if anyone wants to get in touch with him. Email address, joelbrattonjr@gmail.com. Phone number 443-813-6808. I'd like to thank everyone who watched this live or will be watching or listening to it on the replay. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. So for me, you can catch me a number of times during the week live. So just to give you a little recap of where you can catch me live. First of all, Sunday afternoons, 5 p.m., I host a conversation called Black Canada Talking, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where I showcase Black Canadians, and also every week and every other week we do a Black Canada roundtable where we get Black Canadians who are smarter than this guy here you're watching and listening to give their takes and POVs on things from a Black Canadian lens. Then Monday and Friday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, I co-host and produce a conversation called The Morning Vibe with myself and Ryan Knight. Ryan Knight is co-founder, or I guess executive director, I don't know exactly what his official title is, of an organization called the African Canadian Business Network. So that's 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday and Friday mornings, and we showcase Black Canadians. We chop it up every once in a while, etc. And then on Saturday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I host State of Things with Aisha and Jill, Aisha K. Staggers and Jill Jones, wonderful Black American women who give their takes on what's going on in the U.S. and sometimes outside of the U.S. Catch it. Now, to make it really easy, follow me. Follow me on YouTube or Facebook, and you'll get notified when my next epic conversations will be coming up. You can also watch replays on my website, thedrvibeshow.com. Again, on my Facebook page and on my YouTube page. You can catch me on Instagram at the Dr. Vibe Show, thedrvibeshow.com, and also on Twitter at drvibeshow. Always, I like to close off my conversation with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. And also, I really say it these days, and people seem to get it, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. So God bless, peace to you all, keep the faith, walk good, and we will see you soon. Take care, everybody. Good night.